Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom, where we bring you engaging conversations and respectful disagreement across the social spectrum.
Injected with the quirks of everyday life.
Curl up as we navigate the complexities of this modern world with all the humor and warmth we can muster.
And the occasional gentle ribbing. We're glad you're here. Happy listening. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Cole with the T-Man Podcast. We're coming to you live from all across the state of Texas. Okay, Mom, why don't you lead us off?
Okay, that sounds good. So we decided today that we would have a discussion about a book that I had recently read in a book club by Atul Gawande called Being Mortal. First, I want to just give him a plug because he's a great writer. He is a neurosurgeon. This is not his first book. This is actually his second one that I've read. He's a really good writer, so that was really fun. But this was a very interesting concept about how we treat old age, and that the medical community really doesn't address old age because they're taught in medical school how to fix things. And when you get to old age, you can't fix that. And so the whole book is a lead up to that. And so I wanted to just kind of have a discussion with you guys on it, because part of it was even going into what is hospice and how does hospice play in, and him learning what hospice was and how to use hospice in his own practice. And with that, discussions on what end of life choices we need to have conversations about and questions that need to be asked. So I'm coming to you guys as my children to say, not only do you have to clear my house out when I die, and since I know you two have about zero sentimentality, how to deal with that, but also questions about what we want, what each one of us would want if we became really ill about something.
Interesting. I just want to make sure that we're clear. It's not that we don't have an ounce of sentimentality. It's just that it looks different than your baby boomer sentimentality of, I need to keep everything that anybody that I've ever known has touched.
No, it's that y'all don't have any, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, but also the other day when we were cleaning out my room at your house, you were talking about you had furniture of Mama's, of my great-grandmother, of your grandmother, that brought you bad juju. Like it had bad crap and karma around it, and you're like, but I can't get rid of it. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't make any sense to me.
It had bad karma or juju. I just said it wasn't my style, but I still had it because
There was definitely one where you said that it specifically had like bad energy or brought up bad memories.
Yeah.
I was sick. Leave me alone.
Okay.
We'll let that one slide. But
Okay.
no, like I'm with Callie here. Like, it's not that I don't have any sentimentality, because there are certain things that I am sentimental about, but it's like generally more like little trinkets or like an object that I used a lot with someone else that has really good memories. But like your furniture, it's just furniture to me. Like the wing-backed chairs in your living room, like, are they cool chairs? Yeah, but I don't like, they don't carry any sentimental value to me, even though I grew up with those chairs. Would I have them in my house? Sure. Would it be a thing that I have to keep until I die because they were yours? No.
And I even remember you guys reupholstering them and it being this big, huge labor of love. Like, I get all of that.
But do you know why? Because they were my mom's. They were baby blue velvet and sat in my mom's living room. And so I had to get rid of the baby blue velvet. But, I mean, they're good chairs, and they were a big deal to her when she got them.
And that's great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But, like, for me, it would be like, I would probably keep, like, a pair of your shoes or something and, like, have them as a display piece. Or, like, I would keep a lot of the books on your bookshelf because they would remind me of you. To me, those are more representative of you than a chair.
Know which pair of shoes.
I know, me too.
It wouldn't matter. Like, it really wouldn't. Probably your boots. but like it wouldn't matter. Like when I think of you, like having cool shoes is something that I associate with you, and
Right.
so
Warms my heart.
You fancy girl.
Love shoes.
exactly.
Okay. So let's go back to this deal. So one of the quotes is, I learned about a lot of things in medical school, but mortality wasn't one of them. Don't you think that's strange that
Yeah,
in
that-
medical school we're not teaching about mortality?
I feel like it doesn't surprise me because I think that's a really difficult thing to teach about because of not just because like medical school is very much about science and fact. Like it is, these are the methods that we know that will treat X, Y, or Z, whereas approaching mortality is something like you can't cure death. It's not something you can fix, and there's so much more. Like, yeah, there's obviously an awful stigma with cancer, heart disease, obesity, things like that. There are stigmas with those, but there's a little bit of hope there. Once someone is dead, there's no hope for that particular person anymore, and there's so many different ways that not just death, but grief in general are approached by each individual that I don't know that you really could effectively teach that any effective methodology in medical school, because it would be so, I don't even have the word to describe it, but it would be inadequate.
It's patient care. I mean, at a certain point in time, and his whole thing is, we are taught to fix a disease. And we have become society, he calls it even a failed experiment, because say you have cancer and you try that first chemotherapy, but it doesn't work. The doctors have a pretty good idea that this is terminal, and, life expectancy is, let's say, 12 months, but the chemo didn't do anything. Well, let's try another chemo. And we don't know that it's ever done any good or it's going to help you, but let's try another chemo, because that's easier to try another chemo than to say, let's get you ready. And so part of that is bringing in palliative care and bringing in hospice, which is a relatively plan. So I just think it was really good. He brings you through the history where we've changed, and that 80 years ago, and I know 80 years ago is a long time for you guys, but 80 years ago, the majority of people died at home. Nobody expected a doctor to save them or give them life, saving measures. People got sick and they died at home because there wasn't a doctor there to do that. The hospitals weren't active, and so it was just you dying at home. But that's shifted now, so that only about 17% of people now die at home. Or, I'm sorry, die in a hospital or a nursing home today.
Yeah, see, I would much rather go at home. Like, I don't want to be in a hospital at the end of my life. I don't want to be in a nursing home. Like, I would much rather say, you know what? I have a terminal illness. I'm going to go ahead and liquidate my assets. I'm going to go buy a super cool car, light it on fire, and drive it off a bridge. Like, go out in a cool way on my own terms than, like, laying in some hospital bed just wasting away until it's finally time.
That sounds like a hell of a mess for other people to clean up after you.
That's why you go off of a bridge. There's no mess.
You don't think the
just-
fish appreciate like getting
guarantee
a
the
fiery
fish-
ball of F-150?
Well, I said a cool car, first of all.
It's the best one I
But-
could come up with in the moment.
But the fish would actually appreciate it. Now I'm food.
You're burnt food. You're well done.
Fish don't care, Callie. They'll eat anything.
Then let's go on to the next piece of this. If you have decided that you're going to drive off of this bridge flaming and the fish are cool with it, they're not eating the whole F-150 or the whole Ferrari or whatever McLaren or Bugatti or I don't even know. Resvani, whoever you want. They're not eating the car.
Becomes
Maybe.
habitat.
Okay, so, but then I have also decided that I want to die in a fiery blaze of glory and also go off of the same bridge in my Ferrari. It's a red one, just in case anybody was wondering. And then Mom, and then the guy down the street. And then, so before long, we have a mountain of cool cars that are doing absolutely nothing because there are so many of them that they're out of the bridge now. Like, that's still a mess that has to be cleaned up.
But I'm already dead.
So you just don't give a shit about anybody else after you're dead?
Ari.
Which was where I was going to try to direct you to, is that, Cole, does it matter? I mean, if Callie's alive or I'm alive, does it matter that you go out in a blaze of glory? Have you talked to us about that? Are we expecting that, or is that going to be a surprise to us? And how do we deal with our grief or mourning over that?
I get what you're saying, but I'm going to come at this from a little bit different of an angle. I'm dealing with my own grief my own way, and I can't.
You're dead.
Right, because I have a terminal illness, and I don't want to waste away in a hospital. And so, unfortunately, regardless of your wishes for me, I have to live my own life, and I don't want to go out that way. And so I understand it may be hard for you guys, and I would try to have a conversation with you and let you know, hey, I have this terminal illness. I have this amount of time to live. While I would like to spend as much of it with you as I can, at the end, I'm not going to go to a hospital and waste away. I'm going to go out on my own terms in some manner. I'm not saying it's drive off a bridge in a flaming Ferrari. It's just hyperbole for, I want to die on my own terms. I don't want to die while some doctor tries to fix something that they don't know if they can fix it or not.
Which I think goes back into, like, opens up a whole nother can of worms, especially podcast fodder worms, death with dignity and what that looks like in our country and in our state, and being allowed to say, hey, I don't want to go waste away in a hospital room. I don't know, man. But I think that that's its own kind of discussion. Going back to what Mom's talking about is talking about preparing us for death and what that means, as well as preparing doctors and healthcare workers for...
Because I think the medical community has a responsibility to address, the maddest I ever got, my grandmother was in the hospital. She would have been in her 80s. And the hospitalist said to me, well, I mean, anything over 70, you shouldn't expect anything. And I was livid because she was having an episode, but she wasn't dying. And they were treating her like she was insignificant because she was more than 70 years old. And that's one of the things that he brings up, that so let's talk about nursing homes, because they came into a process of care. And because what they're doing is putting old people into nursing homes because they can't afford to live on their own, or they can't, maybe it's not even affordability, but they can't take care of themselves. So they're moving them. We don't take care of them with family anymore like they used to a number of years ago. So they move them into a nursing home, and the goal is to keep them safe. So we don't let them get out of bed on their own. They share a room with another individual. Everybody tells them when they're going to take their medicine, when they're going to get a bath. They can't walk on their own because it's not safe for them to do that. And what really happens is that we take away that person's independence and that person's personalness. And so the whole conversation is, how do we stop doing that? One of the great examples that he gave, there was a ER doctor that decided he became the director because he was looking for something new. He became the medical director for a nursing facility, and he walked in and everybody was depressed and everybody was sad and sleeping all the time. And so he did what doctors do. He started looking, are they on too much medication? Or we have, what's going on with comorbidities here? And it didn't help anything. And he ends up with this crazy plan to bring dogs and cats and birds and plants into the nursing home. And everybody thought, oh my God, this is going to be a mess. You know, who's going to clean up after that dog when he poops in the hall? And instead, what happened is their death rate dropped significantly. People got up and got involved. The old man who was practically comatose started taking care of the birds. And all of a sudden, because they had a purpose to life. When we don't give them that, we just want them to be safe.
But also, like, I think we have to read between the lines here a little bit, too. While we can sit here and talk about we want them to be safe all day long, that's not 100% the whole of it in most of those cases. A big chunk of it is we want them to be safe, and we don't want to be the provider of that for whatever reason. And there's no judgment in that, but I don't have time to take on a toddler that happens to be 84 years old, or I don't have the patience to take on dealing with my dementia enshrined mother who is trying to walk out the door 16 times an hour because she's trying to walk to the grocery store like she used to, but that hasn't been in 15 years. Like, it really, I think that we have, you know, oh God, this is going to make me sound like such a Republican. We have such a fractured view of family and what that is and looks like right now that we don't take care of our elders and we don't take care of these children. I mean, you guys, I live in Houston. It happens at least once a week where somebody has left a baby in a dumpster, like newborn babies in dumpsters, and you're just like, what is wrong with human beings? And I just think that we've done a really bad job at showcasing what a nucleic family is supposed to look like and how it can function, even if it functions a little differently for you guys than it does for us. Like, the benefits of that and building community.
So if something happened to me and I had Alzheimer's, would you be willing to take care of me?
Yeah, I would love to take care of you. But I think that there's also, if I'm being really realistic, I think that there's also kind of, I don't know where it is, but kind of a line in the sand. At this point, it's too much for me to take on.
Yeah. And that happens a lot where you've got, because it falls to the daughter.
Always.
Generally,
Yeah.
to take care of. Not always, but the majority of the time it falls to the daughter to take care of mom or dad and to make those decisions. But she's got a full-time job, or she's raising her children at the same time. So now she's going to take care of, like you said, an 84-year-old, 2-year-old with all of the things that are inherent with, you know, that decline in health and mental capacity.
Struggle with this because I'm trying to think about it from like two different perspectives. I'm trying to think about it from your perspective and my own perspective as your child. Like, yes, I would want to do what I can, try and take care of you, but I don't know that I would be very good at that. So while, like, obviously to me the solution is not to put you in a home, but I don't know how to approach a situation like that where you need care. I don't know that I am capable of providing all of it. But I also am trying to think about it from, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't want my kids to be the ones to be responsible for taking care of me. Like, I saw an article earlier today that was really interesting that was basically talking about how, like, I think it was like 20 to 25% of Gen X have less than $60,000 in retirement savings, and that the vast majority of them are planning on depending on their kids to support them once they retire. And, like, to me, if I decided I was going to bring children into this world, I would never want to, like, it would be my responsibility as a parent to care for them and build them throughout their entire life, regardless of the situation that I am in. I'm responsible for them, and I like it. Like, to me, I don't see a point where I would want my children to have to be responsible for me. And I think that's kind of a weird way of looking at it. It's a very non-traditional view, I feel like. And so I'm kind of struggling. Like, I know what my relationship with you is, and I would want you to be taken care of. but I also don't know how you would want me to approach a situation like that. But I know that for me personally, like, again, why I would much rather, if I'm diagnosed with some terminal illness, go out on my own terms so that I'm not a burden to anyone, my family especially.
So that kind of brings us around. There were 4 questions that they put together, say that you need to have a conversation with your family members. And I think it's not just, mom's getting older, but I think we all need to have that because we're not all guaranteed tomorrow. And so those 4 questions start with, would you want to be resuscitated if your heart stopped? And I think Cole, you can't just say no because there are different circumstances. There are times when resuscitation is really good. So maybe you just got a shock and it, jolted your heart and everything would be fine. So you can't just say no. But I hear what you're saying. Do you want aggressive treatment like intubation or to be on a vent? Do you want antibiotics, which I thought was very interesting? Do you want a tube or IV feeding if you can't eat on your own? So a palliative nurse who knew what she was doing, her father was going to have surgery. She realized on the way home that she had not talked to him and asked him these questions. And even though this is what she did for a living, she literally turned back around and went back to the hospital because he was supposed to have surgery the next day and said, let's talk about this. And what it came down to is he said, if I can still eat ice cream, chocolate cream, and watch football, which she'd never seen him watch football on TV, but if I can do those 2 things, then life is still good. I can still do that. I don't know that I have those 2 things in my mind or those things in mind that would be, because mine really comes down to, don't want to be a burden on the 2 of you. I don't want y'all to have to take care of me. I don't want to be that grumpy old woman who just makes everyone miserable in the room because she's so miserable. I don't want to be that person. But if I lost my eyesight and I couldn't read a book, that would be truly traumatic for me. And so if I get to the point where I can't read books, then I'm going to take the F-150 off the deal. Now, just because I want to throw this in, that F-150 is going to negate everything. They're going to call it suicide, and so you're not going to have any of your insurance pay for any of your things, and so all your family is going to have to take care of all of those expenses because your insurance isn't going to do that anymore.
Also,
what expenses?
But I think those are, well, you got a point there. If you're feeding the fish, I guess there's not really any expense.
You don't even have to have. You can have like a ceremony, like
you've gotten
I would get all of that in line ahead of time. It's not just like, oh, I got this diagnosis, I'm gonna go drive off a bridge now. But again, it's
because I think
I want to go out on my own terms, and I want to bring this up because it's something that I have heard a lot since I was a much younger man, and it's something that I've always kind of resonated with, and it's a little bit more political than the conversation that we're talking with, but I'm intending it on a much more personal and almost like spiritual level than a political one. And I don't even remember who said it, but to me, it kind of sums up my whole argument here. Any man who would forsake liberty for safety deserves neither liberty or safety. Give me liberty or give me death. I want to have the freedom to live my own life, and if I don't have that, I would rather just not be here.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin, wasn't it?
I totally agree with that. I was thinking
It was Thomas Paine.
I thought it was Benjamin Franklin.
that's sad that's a total American historic fact and we don't know who that is.
It was Ben Franklin. Nailed it. Good job.
Dang, gig. Good job.
Finger guns.
Okay. It's called, just to say this, because I found this totally fascinating. First off, I'm just saying we need to be having conversations. They're not fun conversations. None of us are dying, so they're a little bit easier for us. But I had relatives who would not talk to you, who had significant health issues, but they would not talk to you about what they wanted at the end. And that makes it harder on the people behind. But this 2/3 of patients with terminal illness will undergo therapies they don't want if their loved ones want them to. And so
Sorry.
I've had conversations with you guys about if I got really sick, I would just disappear because I'm not going to. I mean, there's a point with me that I'm not going to do chemo for the 16th. And I'm probably not going to do chemo if you tell me that it's terminal. Because what's the point? I want to be present and as healthy as I can be, not with my mouth full of sores or my brain so fogged up or the fact that I sleep all of the time. What's the point of that? So, I mean, for me, mine's not a fiery deal off the deal, but I would disappear. Mine would just be I'd go find a hole somewhere to crawl into because there's no point in doing that to the people that I love.
Just FYI, if we get to that point, please don't crawl into a hole because that feels horrible. Like I will provide you a metaphorical hole and we can figure something out. But to sit here and think about my mother crawling into a hole to go and suffer by herself and die sounds pretty awful.
Well, I don't think the suffering part is in my head. It's just I don't want to have an argument on what I believe is right for me because it's hard for you to let go.
Yeah, we can, like I said, we can work that out, but let's find you a metaphorical hole rather than a real one.
I'll go for the metaphorical hole. Just don't push me into anything I don't want to do.
Deal.
Okay, I'm glad we got that deal. So, really, I guess I'm going to kind of plug hospice here because that's part of my background and has been for the last 30 years. And it was interesting. I had a conversation with a nurse last night and something was said about hospice and the nurse said, that takes a really special kind of nurse to be a hospice nurse.
Absolutely.
And I agree 100%. But I think that we need to communicate what that is. That's not taking people home to die necessarily. That's pain control, palliative care. That's helping them. But that's also, it's a whole medical community to help not just that individual, but for that family to figure out what does need to happen. I mean, Cole, in your scenario, if that's what you want, then there needs to be a conversation with your family that that's what you want. And I'll help you buy not the Bugatti, but maybe the F-150. But, you know.
He said a cool car, Mom.
Sorry. I can find a cool car. I mean, I could take a classic Mustang. That'd be all right. But just to understand that hospice has some real benefits and that there's training there to help the patient and the family to get ready for the end of life and that it can be done with grace and compassion and love. And so if there's anything that comes out of this conversation for us having, well, there's two things. If there's anything that comes out of this, one, I hope people take a look at that and try to figure out what it is and talk to someone, especially if they have someone in that terminal phase, that they'll look for hospice. But two, that it starts us having a conversation, the things that we want and the things that are important in the long run.
And we're not looking to have that conversation on the podcast. Or are you trying to list out all your wishes?
I don't want. No. Let's
Okay.
not have that on the podcast.
I just wanted to make sure because I was like, are we supposed to be taking notes right now?
No. But don't be shocked if I come to you and say, "Hey, this is what your dad and I are thinking, and this is where things are going." Or, "Hey, is there something? Is there a pair of shoes that would mean something to you?" Because I never would have dreamed Cole wanting a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
That cracks me up. I know which one.
She's got them all picked out for you.
Yeah.
Of course
red
they're
ones.
red.
It would go in a shadow box with some blue bonnets and probably like a red t-shirt and I don't know, other stuff.
That. And I'd be just fine with that.
Where are you keeping your shadow box?
Somewhere where I can see it.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like going to go in a storage room or under the bed.
Tuck
Oh,
her
it would
away
be on
under
display.
there.
Just checking. I think that's great.
I give you back that you have some sentimentality there. Look at that. This much.
Only for his mama.
And that
Dad
I'm
would
just
get
fine
one
with.
too.
Fair enough.
Good. Yeah, we'll give him one too.
Wait,
This
what
is gonna
about
be
me?
Fish and stuff, right?
Well, I mean, honestly, Callie, I'm expecting you to outlive me.
That doesn't seem fair. Just saying.
If you go before me, I will have a shadow box for you too.
Thanks,
What are you gonna
Buddha.
put in it?
No, like a iPhone and a MacBook and
Some chapstick. The soft
chapstick.
lips. The vanilla kind. I can leave you some hair. I can give you some random long red curly hairs. I can pull
He
some out of
has
the
those.
vacuum real quick.
He doesn't need any of those. He's already got all of that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it would probably be like some of the books that we shared growing up, like Sugar Lump, and
Did we just get rid of all of those?
I don't
No.
think so.
Tried to give them away to his niece, but I didn't let them go.
I have a whole bookshelf in there
Okay.
of those kinds of
Books, yeah.
books, of our books.
But I would like to know what those books are. Which ones, because Callie, when we cleaned your room out, you said, Mom, these are the books that made me a reader. And I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
So we may have to have some conversations.
I was way into Gossip Girl way before Blake Lively was a Gossip Girl.
Okay, let's do something funny now. So we have all recently gotten in trouble. And I'm just going to stand by this as your mother. Tough crap on anybody who says this. But we've all gotten in trouble for saying, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, to someone.
Oh,
And
yeah.
my stance on this is my mama and my grandmama would whoop my butt. I'm going to tell you this. My grandfather, that was the only thing that you really had to do was if my grandmother asked you something, you better say yes, ma'am. And so that is bred into me. That's in my DNA, I'm pretty sure. So when I say it, I'm not calling you old. I'm not being rude. I'm doing what my mama would expect me to do. And so I want to kind of walk through some of these Southern things that we say that make people get mad at us or make people go, what the heck were they talking about?
No, I really just don't understand it. Because, yeah, there are some Southern sayings that are out there and are wild and weird, and I understand them not making sense to people who did not grow up with them. But to me, sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, is just simple common courtesy. It is just a way to be polite and be respectful. Like, it boggles my mind that people take it as a slight or as being impersonal. Like, okay, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be my mom and dad. You could be my dog. You could be some random person on the street. Yes, sir, no, sir, it's just being cordial. And so I can't understand why it offends so many people. Going through ROTC, I understood a little bit of it when someone who was enlisted would say, work for a living, don't call me sir. But you don't call them sir, you call them by their rank, which is, again, being professional and being cordial. Instead of yes, sir, because sir is what you call an officer, and officers have a stigma of being lazy in many applications. And so
That's going to get us in trouble.
from the enlisted folk, there is a stigma that officers are lazier than non-commissioned officers. And so there is a habit within the military of, particularly NCOs, but enlisted folk in general, if you say yes, sir to them, they will almost always respond, I work for a living, don't call me sir. You call them, then you say, yes, sergeant, or yes, airman, or yes, whatever their rank is, because you're attempting to remain professional or polite or whatever it is. Now, the problem with that is that once they retire from the military, they no longer wear a rank on their sleeve, and they tell you, you don't have to call me sir, I work for a living, and now I don't know what else to call you, so I'm going to call you sir. Sorry. Tough shit.
My issue with this is almost the complete opposite. So I also get in trouble for saying sir or ma'am, but it tends to be like the grocery store when I'm having somebody check out my groceries and I do it. It is such muscle memory. I would say it to my mother or my father or a 9-year-old that is walking down the street by himself without his parents. Like, yes, sir. No, ma'am. Absolutely. Like every single time. And so when they're like, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. Do you have any coupons? Oh, yes, ma'am. And so it tends to be somebody who identifies differently or identifies in a less obvious way. And so like they're trying to downplay their boobs or have this kind of haircut, and I'm supposed to read into that. I'm not giving them enough time to for me to understand and to know them well enough to know that they're on a different journey than the one that was given to them at birth.
That's not your responsibility either.
I get that it isn't my responsibility, but I can certainly see and understand how that being not my responsibility, but being my response could be harmful. Offensive.
Here's the thing. This is probably going to come into play in our biases conversation at some point, but if you look like a sir and I call you sir and that offends you, that is your fault. That is your ego being so fragile that someone else identifying you in a specific type of way hurts your feelings. That is not my problem. I have better things to worry about than how you want to be addressed on the street. If you say, actually, I'm a ma'am, then I will say, excuse me, I'm sorry, ma'am. May I step by you, please? And that's fine. But if you look like a dude, how am I supposed to know? I'm not going to walk up to every person and ask them, excuse me, I'm not sure if you are a sir or ma'am, but I need to get by you. Excuse me, person. Like, that's worse.
Yeah, that's
Agreed.
worse.
Agreed.
I don't want to be that grumpy old woman who just makes everyone miserable in the room because she's so miserable.
Like, I feel like I used to get in trouble by saying, yes, ma'am. It was always to women. It's like, oh, my mother is Mrs. So-and-so. I'm Mary, whatever it is. And so I think it was this like ageist slight or which I get. I'm in my mid-30s. I get it. And somebody looks up at me and says, yes, ma'am. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. Like, I'm not old enough for that. And okay, fine.
So
Fine. You just said you say it to 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think that it has to do, especially with women in the feminine space. It automatically feels the camera adds 10 pounds, ma'am adds 10 years.
I think I'm offended when somebody says yes, ma'am, to me.
I have absolutely 100% seen you stop people on several occasions. In fact, there was a period of time where you went routinely and said, that is my mama. That's Tom's mama.
Well, now
That was
I
for
think you're
Mrs. Trueblood.
Yes.
Yes, I think you're because if you called me Mrs. Trueblood, I didn't answer to that. That was
Who you
that's
are.
Mom. But generationally, she was Mrs. Trueblood and I was Mecca because that's what I went by. I didn't go by Mrs. Trueblood like they did. I mean, you have to think about this, Callie. My grandmother is buried under my grandfather's name, not her own. She's buried as Mrs. Claude, which I think is horrible.
Yeah. I want that. Okay. That's what I want when I die. I want my own name on it. I'm not going as anybody else's name, not y'all's name, not Ryan's name, not anybody else's name. I'm Callie.
You can put a plaque on the guardrail of the bridge if you want to, but I don't really care.
I don't care
Okay.
what it's on. I just wanted to have my own name.
Okay, so this is just us saying, if we're not trying to be offensive when we say yes, ma'am, no, sir. It's bred into us, and it's not meant to be hurtful.
Anything but polite.
Yes.
Spend
that's
your
it.
emotional energy somewhere else.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the truth of it is the three of us are not really going to care very much if you're offended by it. Because it's not something that I feel like I can really fix. I mean, it would be a really, really conscious effort. And I think I would feel so guilty about it that I couldn't really be successful at eliminating it from my conversation.
Tried. I had a conversation with a client on the phone this week, and at the very beginning of our conversation, he asked me a question, and I said, yes, sir. And he said, you don't have to call me sir. I would much rather approach this in a friendly manner. And I said, okay, it's a really hard habit to break. I'm probably going to continue to call you sir. Like, I don't mean anything personal by it. I'm not trying to be overly professional or impolite. It is just the words that come out of my mouth when another human being asks me a question. It is yes, sir, or no, sir. Sorry.
Not much different than me calling you boo.
Exactly.
Okay, so we were talking about these Southernisms, and so I started making a list of things. So, and we've had a couple of giggles over this. The one, all hat, no cattle.
I don't even know what
Don't
that means.
It means
You're not a
that
real
you-
cowboy.
Well, that's part of it, but that you don't really have the meat to be whatever you're saying you are. It's all a look. You don't really have the cattle to back it up to call yourself a cowboy.
Just the outfit.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. Like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Does that mean anything to y'all?
I mean, I've heard that. I mean, but like, what's going to happen? They're going
Well, you're
to.
going to rock on the cat's tail and you're going to get a.
There are
mad
people in
cat.
the chairs.
Well, I mean,
I guess
the
I
chair-
was thinking it was more like an art exhibit. Like it's just an empty room full of a bunch of rocking chairs and a cat, and he is wiggling all around and catching his own tail.
I think the sentiment there is that it's a room full of rocking chairs that are rocking, and a cat walking through that room is very likely to get their tail squished because it's swishing around behind them all of the time. And so they get squished by one, and then they jump, and then where they land, they get squished by another. And so it's to me, it kind of sounds like you're in a bad spot. Like it's kind of similar to like a rock in a hard place, but like there's nowhere good for you to go in this room
It's
because
about to go down.
it's not going to be pleasant wherever you go.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, here's one of my personal favorites. I'm going to knock you into next week and hide your clothes.
You read that earlier, and Ryan busted out laughing. He goes, "What did she say?"
I remember you saying some iteration of that to me several times growing up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Horse hockey.
I mean, I'm assuming that was just like the nicer way of saying horse shit.
Like bull hockey.
Yeah. 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 And Callie, you brought this one up. If it was a snake, it would have bit you, but you had a different quote.
Because I was going through last week's episode, the transcript of it, and it said, it was me talking, and it said something I was trying to say, if it was a snake, it'd bitch ya. It translated it to, if it was a snake, it's a bitch. And I was like, well, hello. Like, that's a different kind of snake that we were talking about, but alrighty.
Yeah. I didn't realize that's where that came from.
Yeah.
Your dad today said that he was lost like a duck in a hailstorm.
I guess I don't really understand that one. Like, I mean, I get, yeah, it means lost, but like, why would a duck be lost in a hailstorm?
What is the alternative? Being bedded down in a hailstorm? Not
I
long.
think that's what it means is the duck's going to get beat up by the hail because he doesn't know where he's going. So he's just going to get beat up
And lost.
and lost. And this was one of your dad's favorites. I'm finer than a frog hair split 3 ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, he likes that one a lot.
Yeah, he does.
Or colder than a witch's titty in a brass bra.
Yeah, that one might have come from me.
Or what? No, Mom had another one about a whore in church.
Sweating like a whore.
Sweating like a whore in church. Yes.
Well, I had some that I didn't think would be appropriate for the air, but we're getting
there.
pretty we're getting pretty raunchy at this point. The two that come to mind are one that I learned from a woman that used to work with me at a bar, and well, one of them was from her, and It's just really funny. It's pretty vulgar, but it's a fast fucking dog doesn't fuck long. And that one
I've
needs
never
to
heard
be
that.
used in context, but it's basically to, like, it's... I'm trying to think of another colloquialism that you would use in place of it, but it's basically like, well, I mean, what did you expect? That's who that person is. And then another one is crooked as a dog pecker, which is crooked.
What?
You can thank Clay Evans for teaching me that one.
I feel like we need to stop putting people on blast. Sorry, Clay. But what? Say that again?
Crooked as a dog pecker.
Okay, don't laugh at me.
That-
Are dog peckers crooked? Did I miss this? Like,
I
this
can't
is
help you with this.
this is a well-known fact that dogs' weenies are crooked. Juanis, come here.
I think
I'm
it's
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I think it's just a colloquialism, and it's the visual that you're supposed to get there.
So, Cole, what context would you use that in?
Well, the context that it was used in around me was in a lumber yard, and so anytime there was a warped board, it was like, well, we can't sell this one. It's crooked as a dog pecker.
Oh.
Or like if you're talking about a corrupt politician, he's crooked as a dog pecker.
I had not heard that one. We had a football coach that he would always go, that dog will hunt. That dog will
That's
hunt.
another good one. That
Yeah.
dog will hunt is a really good one.
Since we've already
Let's
gone there,
see
what's
what
the
we
one about
can-
the three-petered weasel?
What?
Okay, never mind. Hope we know how to beep things out of here.
Yeah, we can make cuts.
Okay, good deal.
Hang on, I'm searching for Southern colloquialisms to see if we can find.
Trying to think. Sweating like a
It's,
horrid
it's like
shirt.
happier than a
Three-petered weasel. That's it.
three-petered weasel, but there's more to it there.
There is?
Keyboard doesn't work anymore, so I give up.
Ryan always says he says the explicit version, but when he's talking about heat, it's hotter than
Bitch
two
and
rats
heat.
screwing in a sock.
Yeah, that's
In a wool sock.
yeah. Two
Oh.
rats screwing in a wool sock.
This one, Cole says it's happier than a three-peckered billy goat.
Yeah, I can see that.
He would be pretty happy. Unless they were all crooked peckers.
Okay, some of these are good. Gig, that dog will hunt was number 3 up here.
Yeah.
Will butter my backside and call me a biscuit. Yeah.
I love that one.
I feel pecked by 100 chickens.
I get that.
I've got a champagne appetite on a Kool-Aid budget.
Yeah.
That's
Always
a
heard
good
a
one.
beer budget.
A beer budget, yeah.
Yeah. That's just a lost ball in high weeds is a good one.
A good one.
Okay.
Whatever cranks your tractor.
Kenny Chesney might have something to say about that.
Yeah.
I've never heard this one, but here are some weather-related Southern colloquialisms. It's coming a toad strangler for
I have heard that.
it's raining really hard.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Makes me think of that Casey Musgrave song about mind your own biscuits and life will be gravy.
So here are a couple of that are this one is really good that I've never heard, but I'm gonna have to write this down and start using it. That boy's about a half bubble off plum. Is fantastic.
Heard that.
He ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Yep.
Let's see. Fellas a few bricks shy of a load. Let's see. Don't go borrowing trouble is a good one. It'll all come out in the wash, and if we don't get it in the wash, we'll get it in the rinse.
I haven't heard the last part of that.
This is another one that Northerners are probably less familiar with. I'm fuller than a tick on a big dog.
Yeah. Full as a tick. Okay,
See.
just because I'm curious, Ryan is trying to convince me that every now and then I say this, but I am very, very, very convinced that I don't ever say this. Do either of you ever say Tuesday instead of Tuesday?
All the time.
Seriously?
Especially if I'm talking to Dad.
I'd say Dad for sure says it, but I have never, ever caught myself saying anything about Tuesday or Wednesday.
I would be shocked if you didn't.
Yeah, I do it a lot. I don't really catch myself doing it. It's just something I got from Dad, I'm sure. Tuesday. But it depends on who I'm talking to. Like, my accent is much thicker when I'm talking to certain people.
Yeah, sure. Like Papa, as soon as he would cross state lines, would get back to...
Again.
This is a good one. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. I love that one.
Yeah,
Cattywampus is a great Southern word.
yeah. I feel like we need to put a link in the show notes to that New York Times quiz that quizzes you on all the different words to figure out where it thinks you're from. Y'all, you guys, use. And it's so accurate. I've done that with people
Yeah.
from all over the country, and everybody is always blown away. They're like, I didn't know anybody else even knew that town.
Funny.
Yeah.
I think we have to put a show link in whatever Cole's looking at. And then I think we have to invite anybody to give us their
Yeah.
Southern Texas sayings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so guys, leave us a comment with your favorite Southern colloquialisms, and we'll see if we find any good ones next week.
I love it.
There you go. You guys got good news stories?
Good news stories.
Here's my favorite one this week. So the story is a 4-year-old, I think it was,
Yes.
in Israel, was at a museum. The museum had a 2,500-year-old vase, apparently sitting in a display, but not behind glass, not protected. And the little boy bumped it and broke it. And the museum has been absolutely precious about, they've invited the family back to the museum. They've recognized it wasn't really his fault. It wasn't protected. Nobody started screaming and yelling or threatening, to sue the parents or anything like this. They've just been really sweet, enough that it's made national news about the little boy. Can you imagine what he's going to be like when he's 20 years old and this story pops up?
My gosh.
Yeah, I was the 4-year-old who broke that vase in Israel. That was me.
The antique one?
Thankful I didn't go viral for anything when I was a kid.
The truffle shuffle. If there'd have been,
There'd have been video of that. That would have been bad.
yeah, I would have done
Middle
it.
name.
We know.
Okay, you guys, wrap us up.
Am I supposed to take this?
Yeah, I brought us in. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I certainly enjoyed my time with you guys this week. I am glad that we had an opportunity to sit here and talk about mortality and getting older, as it is happening to all of us every single day. We can take our conversation offline about what each of our wishes should look like so that we make sure that everybody's being taken care of, not only in life, but also after death. And we'll be back next week for more weird stuff and weird thoughts with two millennials and mom.
Hey
Bye,
guys,
you
y'all have a
guys.
great week.
Love ya.
Love you too.